This might look like a perfect Warhammer army. Like an army without fault, but if we zoom in, Blood Angels have some massive flaws. And after today, you'll know why, and most importantly, we're gonna fix them. Traveling back to 2010, a brand spanking new Blood Angels Codex hit the market. Featuring truly iconic minis such as Death Company Marines, Death Company with Jump Pack, Sanguinary Guard, Gabriel Seth, Lemartes, and Astorath the Grim. This was just like walking into a massive candy store for a 10-year-old Lucas who had just started his own Blood Angels army. But there's one mini that's been haunting my dreams ever since. And this is the Sanguinor. To a 10-year-old Lucas, probably the most beautiful Blood Angel you've ever seen. Not even close, Sanguinius. I mean, look at this shit. Now you're sitting there all like, but Lucas, you can just buy this mini now and it only costs like $25 reduce. Yes, I could. However, in 2017, Games Workshop released this thing called Primaris Space Marines. Stronger, faster, cooler, but most importantly, bigger Space Marines. And you might see where I'm going with this. Even though the Sanguinor Mini is still to date one of my favorite sculpts and most iconic miniatures from the Blood Angels line, I sometimes wish he was bigger. Just like every man. And since Games Workshop seem to have zero to none interest in making an updated version, I see it as my duty to make one. So, where does one start? Well, I had to do some deep research in the darkest, deepest parts of the Games Workshop lineup. Because there's not just one armored muscular dude that we can use for a base for this project, and I really want this project to be perfect. Where we can pay homage to the original, but still make it feel unique, new, and fresh. My first thoughts was to look at Dante, the new cool Blood Angel. Unfortunately, just adding wings to the existing Dante mini wouldn't make him look like the Sanguinor, but instead just Dante with wings. I turned my gaze to Industra, a really cool miniature from the Stormcast lineup, but at a closer inspection, she felt quite a lot smaller than I wanted. And this is just how the story kept going, until his majestic beauty fell before my eyes. Sigvald, Prince of Slaanesh, is the perfect base for this project. The Sanguinor obviously has wings, a power sword, jump pack, chalice, a golden helmet face with golden hair, halo, and some really long purity scrolls. Okay, so the first thing that came to mind is that I think that Emil should have an Industra hidden away somewhere here in the garage. So let's just look through all these boxes and see if we can find Industra, the winged lady, and just crack them off and steal them for the Sanguinor. Let's go. Look how sad she looks without the wings. Kinda cool though. The jump pack I could easily sneak out from the jump pack Intercessor Space Marine kit, alongside some other handy details such as a power sword and maybe some pouches and frack and crag grenades. Boom. Other stuff I managed to scramble together from different boxes in the office, such as a Stormcast Eternal helmet, the back of a Space Marine torso, and Lionel Johnson's Gloria. You heard me right.
What? What the fuck?
Of course you can use any other Gloria, but I am using Lionel Johnson's one, because I had it. Deal with it. Starting off by removing all of the Slaanesh-inspired details from Sigvald's armor. Then it was time to start with the torso. And by now, you know all the Warhammer memes, so of course I had to cut off Sigvald's beautiful ass and make sure we could save it in this project. I glued Sigvald's ass to his torso, and by chance, a Space Marine back fits perfect over his ass and to the back of his torso. Next up was to fit the wings to the torso. Now, since you can't apparently fly in 40k by just using your wings, we need to add the jump pack. This was a lot of back and forth, cutting away small chunks on the wings and jump pack to make sure it fit nicely. And once it did, bada bing bada boom, it looked like a freaking Games Workshop kit. Finishing off the Mini by adding the legs and the helmet. And don't worry about the massive gap underneath his head that's now just floating mid-air. We're gonna fix that later, so stay tuned. The biggest and most important step of this entire project is gonna be to sculpt all of the unique different details. And yes, of course, I could just use parts from the Sanguinary Guard kit, but in my opinion, if we're trying to recreate the Sanguinor Mini, we cannot stray too far from the original. So let's do our best and try to match this perfectly. Let's begin with the golden hair, and for this I'll use the Tamiya putty and some silicone tools. And if you're ever wondering about the tools and products we used in the videos, we got it all listed on our website squidmar.com. Putting a thin piece of putty on the head and then making small curly spaghetti looking strands going down the sides, followed by some single curls going down the middle of the face. The sword guard and the chalice are quite straightforward. For the sword guard, I begin with a chunk of putty, then by using the round silicone tool again, I create the swooping shapes of the feathers. Once dry, I add a lump of putty in the center and sculpt into the classic Blood Angel's blood drop. For the chalice, I begin with a big lump of epoxy putty, and once it's dry, you can start cutting into the rough shape of a chalice with your knife. I then add a trim to the top part using Tamiya putty, and then I resculpt some of the base of the handle and add a blood drop. This means we're finally at the point where we need to sculpt the unique shoulder pads and the big swooping purity scrolls. And while I do, let me talk about this week's sponsor, BetterHelp. We've all had tough times in our lives, and whenever you go through one, there's no reason you should do it alone. With BetterHelp, anyone can access therapy from anywhere in the world, helping you with whatever is interfering with your happiness or keeping you from achieving your goals. Starting therapy can be hard. The right therapist for you might not be in your area, and some people find the face-to-face interaction of therapy uncomfortable. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who's trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. With BetterHelp, you can have your therapy sessions as a phone call, as a video chat, or even through messaging if you prefer it. If you think you might benefit from therapy, visit betterhelp.com/squidmar. Not only will you get 10% off your first month of BetterHelp, you will also help this channel. Now, let's get on to painting this bad boy. To save some time but still keep things nice and epic, I'll start by painting the wings. I pick a good beige tone, and using my airbrush, I apply the paint from above at a slight angle. This should leave you with a wings that look semi-finished and pretty nice, which means I can now move on to painting all of the gold details. Which on this Mini is quite a lot. Why the fuck did I agree to paint this in non-metallic metal?
Just do it, Lucas!
I don't know.
You're such a lazy ass f***er.
Starting off with covering the Mini with a dark brown. I then start mapping out all of the highlights and reflections using an orangey brown. And keep in mind, when it comes to painting non-metallic metal, it's not necessarily the paints themselves that's the big deal, it's about 99% highlight placement. And if you feel a bit unsure, we've made these two videos that go in depth on how to place your highlights correctly. To increase the contrast, I add more and more ice yellow to the mix, but on a smaller and smaller area. To finish off the gold armor and really make it look like that shiny, pristine gold armor, I thin down some orange and yellow paint and glaze them in certain areas to make it pop. After the gold is done, it's time to move on to the iconic shoulder pads. Starting with a dark red, then moving in with a brighter red, and finally some ice yellow mixed in with the bright red. Then for the white details, I begin with a medium gray, highlight with deck tan, and then in some areas you can add a tiny amount of ivory to really make it pop. And now before I bore you to death, let's do a speed round. Just like that, you now have a finished Sanguinor, which means it's time for a grand reveal. As I've said before, you can find all of the tools and gear we use in the videos listed at our website squidmar.com, and while you're at it, maybe pick up some of our awesome merchandise. For this week's thanks, a massive sponsor, BetterHelp, and also our Patreons. You guys are truly iconic beasts, especially this one and this one. With that said, have a good day. Bye bye!